So welcome, everybody. Are we out here? Welcome, everybody. All right. I know that this one is a little bit controversial, and some of you have decided to come in and figure out just how controversial it is. So we have publications, East Bay Express on this side, saying that I'm crazy for talking about this. You've got San Francisco Chronicle on the other side that says, I think correctly, that this is about looking at innovation. That's the strategy. Bitcoin, crowdsourcing, other things are tools. So that's how we're looking at it. And I think we have a lot of questions here from how do you get these things to how individuals and cities use them. Should they be using them? What about security? And then I'll go through one more article that wasn't written about me, but was in the New York Times that Mark Andreessen penned. And Mark is I guess the founder, one of the two founders of Andreessen Horowitz. And Andreessen Horowitz has made a $50 million bet on this space. So they are guessing that it's going to mature and it's going to lead to some good results. So I want to bring up the panel without further ado. First, I'll ask Brock Pierce to come up, and he's the founder of Affinity Media, chairman of GoCoin and several other startups. Brandon Goldman, who is the CEO of an emerging company in this space. Will Wheeler, he's the CEO of ExpressCoin. Marshall Hayner, co-founder of QuickCoin, and Ryan Singer, founder of CryptoCorp. Give them all a hand, please. Let's act like we're live here in the room. All right, perfect. Now, that's the kind of energy I think we need here. So, once we get the mic set, we're going to start in with questions. Okay. I'm going to start with Brock. Actually, can I get a showing of hands? How many people know exactly what Bitcoin is? All right. So about 3/4. How many people have or have held Bitcoin? All right. So good. So we're going to jump into this, and I'm going to try to go pretty rapidly so that we can use our half hour here to the best of our abilities, and then save some time for questions at the end. So Brock, can you give us a definition for the 1/4 who may not know, and embellish for the 3/4 that do? What is Bitcoin?
Well, just one last question first. And how many of you are skeptics?
Oh, there we go. That's a good one.
The more the better. Those are my favorite audiences. So Bitcoin is a technology platform as well as a currency that behaves as digital cash. It moves no differently than, and it has a lot of the same attributes of cash or gold in this case. So it's digital cash that runs on top of that technology platform as well as a global payment network.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Next, I want to move into, I want to show you guys how many different parts of the Bitcoin ecosystem exist, because there are many factors at play, not just the mining, but exchange, etc. So why don't I start with Ryan, and what I'm going to ask the panel, and each panelist, just be brief if you can, where do you play in the Bitcoin ecosystem?
So I founded a company called CryptoCorp. We're a security provider for wallets and Bitcoin exchanges. We protect users from theft, fraud, malware, phishing, counterparty failure, ecosystem-wide. We're partnering with all of the largest companies in Bitcoin to do that.
Thank you.
So my company is called FreshPay, and we're working on products and services that help people spend digital currencies like Bitcoin in the real world.
Well, I guess I'm all over the place. I've started 9 Bitcoin companies and invested in 12 so far this year. Everyone up on that list, I guess other than Ryan right now. But so playing all over the industry, vertically, horizontally, and globally.
Yeah, and I'm going to stop here on Brock a little bit. There's a company called, I think there are 2 approaches here. There is they invest in a number of different companies and put them all together as an ecosystem. And there's an approach that a local company here, and this is the one that Andreessen Horowitz invested in, Coinbase, and they combined all the technologies into one. So I'm going to ask Brock to stop and just give us a little bit on the different parts of the ecosystem where you guys are playing.
Well, yeah, some of the most basic of infrastructure. So Bitcoin is essentially where like the internet was in 1991, 1992. You've only got 3, 4, 5 million people that are holding it today, and we all understand the speed at which sort of technology and systems utilizing the internet today can grow. So you need things like, well, the basis of the Bitcoin network is mining. So you've got hardware to support the process of getting Bitcoins. You get them one of 2 ways. You produce them by running the Bitcoin software, think peer-to-peer networks like Skype. And by running that software, you earn Bitcoin. The other is you buy it or barter for it or something of that nature. So mining, then once you have currency, you need a place to hold it typically, so you've got wallets. If you're looking to buy it or sell it, you're typically doing that on an exchange. And those would be some of the sort of the core technologies on the consumer side. And then the other is if you have it, you want to be able to do something with it other than just make a speculative bet. You want to be able to spend it in places, so sort of merchant tools. So we're building out the initial sort of infrastructure to give Bitcoin utility and making it easy so people other than early sort of technology adopters can use it.
Yeah.
And so that's that first wave of, call it the ecosystem, and then we'll get into, assuming, waves 2, 3, and 4.
We will, and I assume there are also Bitcoin credit cards, or at least emerging Bitcoin credit cards.
Yeah, so that's one of the models around utility is people are taking traditional sort of debit cards and attaching those to Bitcoin wallets. So, for example, you could have a Bitcoin MasterCard, and with that, you would then be able to spend your Bitcoin in the 28 million locations where MasterCard is accepted, as well as walk up to a traditional ATM, stick the card in, and withdraw cash, again, directly debited from your Bitcoin wallet in real time. So that's, I think, an incredible sort of idea around leveraging existing technologies and rails and combining it with this new thing so that you get a very powerful sort of transitionary technology.
Great, thank you, Brock. Will?
Sure. So we are the on-ramp for digital currencies. We allow consumers to buy and sell them directly, move local currency into any digital currency that they want.
Okay. Marshall, I think you have a couple different aspects to this, so why don't you let us know where you guys are playing?
Yeah, so QuickCoin is basically making Bitcoin simple. How many people here think that Bitcoin is complicated? Raise your hands. Okay, so that's what we're doing. We're making it simple. We're making it easy for everyone to use. Your grandparents could use it. Once you get into our app, it loads the wallet in 30 seconds, and it's like the simple software that you're used to seeing. It's not complicated. So we recognize there's a niche for that market, and we're basically trying to allow anyone to be able to pick up Bitcoin and send it anywhere in the world without having the hassle of looking at all the back-end stuff. I think Brock said it, HTTP, you don't have to know how that works to browse the internet, and that's the same thing with Bitcoin. Bitcoin is an amazing financial tool, and I think we're just about to see the beginning of that, and QuickCoin is making it easy for you guys to use.
Got it. Thank you for that. So I'll go back to the New York Times article that I referenced in the Chronicle. And so the question is, what are some of the uses of this Bitcoin technology? And I think you've heard from the panel here that there is merchant transactions, they're sending money. One of the things that Mark Andreessen and I both talked about is using Bitcoin in this war on poverty. So I think we'll get into that a little bit. But Marshall, why don't I come to you first? Let's go a little bit deeper, and we may go further in the panel. Give the audience some indication of some everyday uses of Bitcoin and maybe some uses that we're not even thinking about.
Exactly. So Bitcoin is just amazing as a currency, but also as a commodity. It can be transferred anywhere in the world instantaneously. It weighs nothing, and the fees are minimal. They're next to nothing. Over half the world is unbanked. With Bitcoin, you can open up a bank account instantly. Basically, all you need is a computer or a mobile phone. And $540 billion goes into the remittance market, and about 10% of that goes to Western Union. These are some of the poorest people in the world that are paying on average 8 to 20% on remittance fees, a lot of which are unbanked. When the money arrives in that country, they just get cash. So Bitcoin is going to change that. It's going to bank the world. It really is going to change the world in a lot of different ways that we've yet to realize.
Marshall?
There's 100 uses for Bitcoin. As Marshall said, as a commodity, but as a currency, but also as a platform, as Brock likes to get into. Just 2 days ago, someone released a product that allows you to sign into websites using the Bitcoin protocol to sign messages. There's 100 ways to use it. There's like the value transfer, the website sign-in, tracking value, accounting. It's a really cool piece of tech.
Yeah, one of the things that I've read in terms of merchant transactions, one of the biggest things of merchants, say here in the U.S., taking sales internationally are these fees. And Marshall touched on the fees and how they could be lower with Bitcoin. So talk about them and the use of merchant transactions. I'm going to steal a little bit from an upcoming question on security and talk to me about, is security a gating item? Should merchants be concerned with having their transactions out there?
should a merchant be concerned with having their transaction publicly viewable?
I'll
but-
jump in on
please.
this one.
Using Bitcoins is most.
If you're a merchant, even if you think this is tulip bulbs or Ponzi scheme, you should be accepting it. It is the greatest tool to any merchant around the world, and those are because the fees are lower, there's no chargebacks, there is no fraud, you get better conversion rates because of those attributes. You don't need to ask for as much information in your sort of funnel or your registration process. In addition to that, you get a bunch of new customers. So back in the same way that we talk about how Bitcoin will democratize the global financial system in a way where every human being on the planet has equal access to that system, the same is true if you run an internet business where you're selling a product or service. One of the problems you have today is only about, well, inherently as an internet company, you have a global retail storefront, but only about 25% of the customers that have the ability to walk through those doors today have the ability to transact with you. Bitcoin now makes it where every human being on the planet has access to the internet economy, and it has the ability to grow the total addressable market by, call it, 400%. I think that's a pretty compelling thing when you start thinking about a use case, and you don't need to believe in it at all. The companies that are providing the merchant services for these merchants to accept these digital currencies take 100% of the risk as it relates to, call it, the volatility. Meaning if you have a customer buying a product or service with digital currency for $100, that payment company is taking the risk of the volatility and charging you typically less than 1% for absorbing that risk.
Yeah, and let's talk about the role of security here, because I think that people may not understand this. And let's talk about, dig in on what you said. There's a digital certificate and a role for ledgers here. So we in fact know exactly where these transactions are coming from and going. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, all Bitcoin transactions occur on a public ledger. Every transaction is visible and permanently recorded into what is called the blockchain in a way that that information is permanently public and accessible to anyone and everyone.
So
Well,
also
Marshall-
about
please.
security. A Bitcoin wallet's not the same thing as a bank account. The Bitcoin wallet actually has within it software certificates that are used to sign the transactions. So when you broadcast a Bitcoin transaction, it's not a request to an API like when you swipe a credit card. It's actually you're pushing out a signed, already valid transaction, and you're just letting people know about it. So the certificates that sign those transactions are the basic security issue in Bitcoin, and every wallet and every exchange and anybody who writes software that touches Bitcoin, that's the kind of thing they think about.
Yep.
So it's very different security thoughts than running a bank or running a credit card company, because their security is all about fraud. In Bitcoin, security is all about how do you access and store and spread the certificates that can sign transactions.
That's
Yeah,
right.
that was one of the major innovations. Bitcoin is taking a number of different technologies that have been invented over the years, combining them, and solving one major problem, which is this concept of double spend.
Yeah.
The reason why you have these trusted counterparties today is to make sure when you've got money in your hands, you can't pay two people at the exact same time. And Bitcoin solved that problem so that you can have a peer-to-peer digital cash product on the internet.
Yeah, and just to come bring this to a layman's terms a little bit more, this is actually like having a bearer instrument. So it's extraordinarily safe. And give you a contrast, look at Target and the hundreds of millions of dollars that they lost by exposing their customers' credit cards to a little bit of fraud. Before we move on, I want to come back to Marshall real quick. Can you talk to us about this poverty phenomenon? How could Bitcoin be used there?
Yeah, I mean, when you think about the idea that Bitcoin is a bank in your pocket, I mean, it's just amazing that anyone can open up a bank account with Bitcoin immediately. Microtransactions become available. Typically, microtransactions were, 30 as much as over 50% for a merchant to receive less than a penny or something like that. And in the third world, this really matters. The ability to have that and for anyone to become global, as Brock said, and open up their business to the world, this becomes enabled. And there's just amazing ways that the remittance market is going to be changed around Bitcoin. The banking system is going to be changed around Bitcoin. There is no such thing really as a counterfeit Bitcoin. So it's going to change the way the banks work and people access money. And the third world will very soon have access to a whole new banking system thanks to Bitcoin.
Well, you have poverty here in the United States as well. I mean, there's 50 million people in this country that are members of what you call the unbanked. Businesses like Green Dot have provided them with some solutions. But there are a lot of people making minimum wage, near minimum wage, in some cases under minimum wage, that have to go to check cashing stores and give up 10% of their income when they're already the people that struggle the most in this society, and how when you're paying fees greater than anyone else in this country, how are you supposed to get up and on your own 2 feet and try and build a better life for you when you're the group that's taken the most advantage of?
Yeah, I think a good in a book into that is driving savings behavior by moving online. I think we're driving savings behavior, and in the way of announcements, I told Marshall that we would, so we're going to announce it here. So hopefully some of you folks are tweeting this out at Brian Parker 2014. You've got the at Vator Splash Oakland. Marshall, Brock, I volunteered Brock for this, and other folks are going to team up, and we have picked a Oakland charity. It's an Oakland charity that serves homeless. On any given night, we only have 18% of beds that are needed for the homeless population. So we're going to raise money through Bitcoin online to fund beds, food, and alcohol rehabilitation. So we're going to have a matching program that is going to seek over some short period of time, we're still playing with the platform, $20,000 just to validate the concept and put our Bitcoin where our mouth is. So please stay tuned for that. And all of you, I think I counted 60% that were holding Bitcoin. We're going to expect you to play there with us. Moving on, let's talk about mainstream acceptance. And Brandon, I'm going to come to you. Bitcoin trades for about $450 right now, down from a high of 900. It is said that you need very costly mining equipment to be able to come up with Bitcoin. How is this going to be affordable to the average person, and what is going to drive mainstream adoption?
So right now, I think Bitcoin is in this weird state where it's a speculative asset, and we're hoping that it will mature to be more of a currency, especially one that can be used day to day. And right now, people and companies are still building products and services that can help with that, and it doesn't quite exist yet. When the internet first came out, it was difficult to use, but now it's easy to use. And so in the coming years, when these companies build these products and services that make it easier, then more people will use Bitcoin as a currency. Brock?
Yeah, I mean, the mining component is not meant to be something for everyone. The aspect of mining is a purely capitalistic, architected for purely capitalistic reasons to build out the network so that it had underlying security. Bitcoin itself, in the way that it democratizes the financial system, and it reduces the fees across the entire financial services industry. And again, because it gives everyone access, that's how it helps people. Mining is not meant for everyone. It's meant for those people that want to invest for the purposes of generating a return, at least as it is today, and it looks like it will continue to be that way.
But at 450, and just to push back, and I'll come back to you, right? Is this a
volatility thing?
No, this is the price. It's $450 a coin.
Again, this is we live in an analog world, so as a result of that, it's $450. It should go from $450 to $4,500 to $45,000. It's a deflationary instrument, even though there's inflation today. You move the decimal point. We're actually targeting in July rebranding the currency from Bitcoin to bits, and we're moving the decimal point over 3 times. So Bitcoin in current prices, you'd have bits that are available for 45 cents.
Yeah.
And so when I want to make a purchase of something that's going to cost $4.50 today, I would pay you 10 bits.
Yeah. Just
so that our minds, because it's difficult to think digitally when we still live in a world that's, even though we're quite digital now, we still live in an analog world, and our minds have a difficult time understanding that.
So it's like Apple that was trading at 600 and does a reverse split, and so now it's 6, but the value's still the same.
That's the right way of thinking about it.
All right.
Bitcoin splits all the way down to 8 decimal places. So you can actually make a payment in Bitcoin that's half a penny. So it's very easy to buy 1 penny's worth of Bitcoin or 5 cents worth of Bitcoin. So you don't need to get a whole Bitcoin to get in. It's very, very subdividable.
Good. I'm going to go to the part of this that, how many people were skeptics of Bitcoin? Please raise your hands again. I think I got about a fourth. Okay, good. So this question is for you all. If we look at things like Mt. Gox, Charlie Shrem, who was arrested and who was one of the CEOs of one of the major Bitcoin exchanges, and this whole volatility question. I mean, we were at 900 6 months ago. We're at 450 right now. Ryan, I'll pick on you as our security expert first. How can we have confidence in this with these kind of events taking place?
So these kind of events are really common in growing industries. Actually, if you talk to people who are early in the internet, like Brock, they can tell you some stories about things that happened early in the internet. A lot of the big startups that got a lot of funding in the early 90s also spectacularly collapsed. What happened with Mt. Gox is very simple. They were a exchange that was started as a Magic the Gathering online card exchange. They built their systems kind of piecemeal, one at a time, as they were growing, and they never reconcepted it as a financial institution. So when it got to the point where they were holding $500 million of other people's money, it was still in systems that the CEO had hand-coded.
Yeah.
And so...
And just to make it plain for the audience, weren't they keeping the certificates and the keys all together so that when they were stolen, you didn't have the extra security?
So this is kind of the old way of doing a Bitcoin exchange. I used to run a Bitcoin exchange called TradeHill. We held over 100,000 of other people's coins. It was at the time a little over $100 million of other people's money. And they were holding their batches of coins on flash drives like this. And what they were doing is they had split the flash drives into multiple components, and you needed to use enough of them to reconstitute. And rumor has it that they just had too many flash drive failures.
Okay. Brock, I think you had something to say about this whole how can we believe in Bitcoin with some of the current events that we've heard about?
Well, I mean, the only reason normally people want me to answer on this is I'm one of the partners leading the acquisition of Mt. Gox out of bankruptcy to try and get everyone their money back. And so far it looks like about 20–25% of those funds will be getting back to customers, assuming we're successful in our bid and have the ability to distribute those funds quickly. And we've got a mission of getting the exchange back live to get everyone 100% of their money back if we are in fact successful. But as Ryan stated, this was one of the early sort of exchanges. They did not have the systems or infrastructure to, they didn't evolve with the industry. And like early banks even here in the United States, they used to get robbed and these sorts of things would happen before we had mature sort of systems and teams and FDIC. And this is still a little bit of the wild, wild west. I mean, do your research, learn. Fortunately now, you've got the second and third wave or generation of companies coming out. They're being developed correctly. They've got basic controls of segregating customer funds, no commingling and things of that nature. So, I mean, these are some of the problems that often exist with an emerging technology, especially one that involves digital cash, but not one that I anticipate being a problem in the future as a result of guys like Ryan doing what they're doing.
About 5 more minutes, or how?
One more question.
Okay, so let's see, where do we want to go here? Well, let's try to wrap it all together, and we'll go around. So Ezra, can I do one more and then see if the audience has one?
Yeah.
Is that okay? So let's talk about the future of Bitcoin. Where are we going with this thing? And just take the different aspects that are applicable to you, but sound bites since we're going to try to get the audience involved. There's Litecoin, there's Dogecoin. Alan Greenspan always told us that we were going to have a day where digital currency exists. I don't know that we're at that digital currency, but maybe there's a 2.0. Maybe there are other technologies that can be built on top of the digital block. Ryan, why don't we start with you? What is the future of Bitcoin and other digital assets?
The Bitcoin network is a global settlement network, just like SWIFT. But instead of needing to have a bank charter to join, anybody can just have their phone or their computer join. Bitcoin sends a transaction across the world in seconds to any computer that's on the internet for pretty much free. It's going to outcompete SWIFT. When you do an international banking transaction, when you send money to anybody who's in another country, you're going to be using Bitcoin even if you don't know it.
Great. We're going to move to Brandon, but why don't we get a hand raise for who would like to ask a question? That way we'll get you queued up. Anybody with a question, like to ask a question on Bitcoin? So raise your, right here in the front. Brandon?
So I think the future of currency is definitely digital currency and very likely cryptocurrency like Bitcoin and the other altcoins like Dogecoin and Litecoin. I think it could take a while for that to happen. We're trying to make that happen as soon as possible. And once all currency is digital, I think the world will be a better place.
Brock?
To the moon. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
So back to, if you think of the Bitcoin technology or platform like being TCP/IP, and then you think of the currency being the first application that was built on top of it, but which was needed because it was the instrument that created the incentive to build that network. You now have this HTTP layer where people are able to build decentralized distributed applications on top of that network that have nothing to do with currency. And I think you're going to see some pretty amazing things developed here over the next couple of years. I just invested in a thing called SafeCoin or MadeSafe, which is basically a decentralized version of Dropbox, where you can take disk space on your computer, add it to the network, and earn coin much in the same way you'd put a solar panel on your roof, and you've got the ability to add power to the grid or consume power. And in the same way, you can buy distributed, decentralized storage. There's another one coming soon called Meshcoin, where with your Wi-Fi router or connectivity, you make that available. So I think we're going to see a pretty amazing future of decentralized applications and ultimately organizations that will fundamentally disrupt the entire world we live in.
Yeah. Will and Marshall, we'll give you 30 seconds to answer the question here since we're running out of time. Why don't we go to the audience and we'll let the two gentlemen on the end respond.
Hi. Yeah, obviously security is one of the biggest issues in Bitcoin. So my question is this, have they found out actually what happened in Mt. Gox exchange? How was the money stolen, and do they know where exactly the $500 million went? Yeah. And is there a way to actually prevent this type of heist in the future?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's not clear whether it was theft. So because the entire Bitcoin network is entirely transparent, I will, if I'm successful in spinning this business out of bankruptcy and rehabilitating it, I will know exactly what happened, how, and when. Because Bitcoin is transparent, it's easy to figure those things out. It's just been a complex situation with bankruptcies in multiple jurisdictions and lack of management and sort of expertise being available. We just haven't gotten those answers. But because Bitcoin is transparent, I can say with 100% certainty, I will get those answers. I just don't know if I'll be able to get the coin back.
Yeah, so guys, I'm going to have to cut off the back and forth. So 3 quick things as we close. The panel has all generously agreed to hang out in the speaker's lounge for a few minutes. Anybody that wants to go deeper, let's go over there and go deeper. Clearly, there's much more to this story that we can that we can tell. One of the reasons that I wanted this for our technology group is I want, and please leave here with this clear message about my intentions. It is innovation is our strategy. Things like Bitcoin, crowdsourcing, a lot of the things you've heard about at the conference are tools. I think we've got an interesting future ahead, and we'll see. Tonight, we will have our winners dinner. I think you've heard us talk about this all day. I think all the folks from the panel are going to be there, so you can come and talk to them. And you can see this lady right up front if you still haven't gotten your ticket. Let me close by just asking you to give a great round of applause to this great panel.